This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Since its inception in 2013, the Excel series has grown exponentially right across Australia, and it's been responsible for introducing a new generation of drivers to circuit racing. The racetracks may be shut at the moment, but that hasn't stopped drivers in the country's most popular one-make series from seeking their competitive motorsport fix. Yep, that's right, folks. The Excel series has gone virtual, and just like real life, drivers have turned out in their droves. The 1.5-litre Hyundai Excel race car may not feature in the iRacing platform, but don't despair, because we've equipped each of our competitors with a worthy replacement in the form of the Audi RS3 LMS TCR car. Tonight, we head to the undulating Brands Hatch circuit in England for round 2 of the series, where an assortment of races will be aiming to knock off last week's winner, Ethan Grigault. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lockie Matz, and welcome to SimSpeed TV's live and exclusive coverage of round 2 of the Circuit Excel eSeries. Joining me in commentary tonight, David Haynes. And David, good to see that a very, very popular real-life racing series has been able to adapt to the virtual world.
Yeah, g'day. Certainly, it's great that we can still get these guys racing wheel to wheel against each other. We can tune in and see what's going to be some exciting action, no doubt. And while these cars have got a little bit more horsepower than an Excel would, I think the way that they drive still very, very similar. Momentum is absolutely key. Still front wheel drive, and the way that you get some speed is going to be very, very similar. The cream will still rise to the top.
And interesting that you make that point, because in the real life world, we have seen some drivers make the transition from the various state level Excel racing series here in Australia to TCR cars, including Jordan Caruso, Jason and Ben Bargwana. They've also driven both the Excels and the TCR cars. And Jay Hanson's had a run in some Excel racing as well. So, yeah, definitely that understanding of front wheel drive handling characteristics translates into the TCR car, albeit with a bit more horsepower, obviously, with the TCR car having a 2-litre turbocharged engine as opposed to the Excel 1.5-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. But we had round number 1 last week at Laguna Seca. It was Ethan Grigault who picked up a first and a second place finish out of the 2 races, who has opened up quite a handy lead at the top of the championship standings. 288 points for him, plays 234 points for Ben Smith, with Aaron Oliver, Techstar McCoy and Mitchell McGarry completing the top 5.
So we're looking at qualifying now, and finding some clean space out there is going to be definitely a challenge for some of these drivers here. You can see the first of those lap times starting to come in.
So because we've got such a big field of cars tonight, and the grid capacity is 61 cars, I believe, there might actually be a few unfortunate participants who will miss out. Qualifying has been divided up into 4 different groups to try and give everybody an opportunity to get some clear track. But one of the things that we've seen with these TCR cars, David, at past events, is that you want to try and get a slipstream from the car in front if you can. There is an advantage to be gained if you can get a good tow from another driver.
Yeah, certainly difficult to strike that balance, because you never want to be impeded on any of your fast laps. There's only a certain amount of time that these drivers have got on the clock to set their times. As you can see, about 20 minutes left, and there's also a narrowish window where your tyres are properly prepared and giving their best performance. So you don't want anyone getting in your way on your fast lap. But also, sometimes, if you do pick up a bit of a slipstream off someone who's well placed, it'll help you get closer to the top of that qualifying order. So the balance to be struck there is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of factors that you have to think about. So obviously, if you can get a slipstreaming toe, that will give you a bit of a time advantage. But conversely, if you get stuck behind someone who is slow and they hold you up through the corners, that can cost you time as well. So what the drivers will look to try and do is get into a bit of a draft pack with someone who's doing fairly similar lap times to what they're doing, and trying to tow each other around the circuit. Speaking of the tyres, one of the big talking points with these TCR cars is getting the rear tyres up to temperature. So for the first lap or couple of laps, the drivers will be working very hard to try and get energy into those rear tyres to get them warmed up. But it is a session that goes for 25 minutes. So what we might see as well here, David, is the drivers will go for a couple of distinct runs. They'll go out, they'll bank a time early in the session, but of course, as the track rubbers up, you're going to get more rubber being laid down on the racing line. It's going to get faster. So what you'll then see, I reckon, is about halfway through the session, a lot of drivers will pit. They'll take on a new set of tyres and they'll go out for a second run. So it could be that we don't actually see the very fastest lap times until quite late in the session.
Good example right there. Some drivers pushing those limits in this stint here, trying to get all the time they can out onto the grass. It might have been a bit for Textar McCoy there. Certainly, it's looking pretty close up the front, and I totally agree with your reading of the situation there. I think once we approach maybe 10 minutes left in the session, drivers will definitely be reaching for another set of tyres and try and improve on the times they could set down in their first run at qualifying.
So Jack Boyd goes to the top of the time sheets at the moment, 1 minute 32.9, his best time in the session. And he had a pretty good run in at the opening round last week at Laguna Seca, picked up a second place finish in the opening race of the weekend. But as I say that, he's just been eclipsed at the top of the timesheets by Dylan Burse. So at the moment, it's Dylan Burse ahead of Jack Boyd, Aaron Oliver, back to Matthew Runt, and then young Caleb Hides, who actually just moves up into third position as we speak. And Caleb Hides, a driver with no real world racing experience, but has done a lot of sim racing, particularly in Mazda MX-5s. We were pretty impressed earlier in the week on Tuesday night when he participated in the Just Send It series at the Charlotte Road Oval course. Just how competitive he was straight away. So only a very young competitor, but Caleb Hides is already showing some pretty impressive form in some of the sim racing events that he's done so far.
Take a look here. Matthew Horn looking to improve, not going to be able to do so on that lap to my knowledge. But certainly quite a few quick laps coming in at this point here. Drivers improving such that we've seen, and Ben Smith there is going for pit entry. So he's decided maybe the best is done of those tyres. Is my understanding where we're driving to a fixed setup here, and in that case you might want to do a couple of laps burning off fuel, then come into the pit lane to put a new set of tyres on, have a bit of a lighter car for some of your later runs. That's definitely a strategy that can be employed in this kind of situation.
It's a good point that you make there, David, and we have seen, haven't we, in some of the other sim racing events where drivers have accidentally hit the escape button to get a tow back to the pits, and the problem if you do that is that it resets your car to its original setup, which means that you are back on a heavy fuel load. So I think you're right. The drivers will be trying to burn off as much fuel as they can, get the weight down as low as they can to increase the performance potential of their car later on in this session. Again, just to clarify for those of you who've just joined us here on SimSpeed TV, 4 qualifying groups have been allocated for tonight because of the fact that we do have such a large field. So the particular drivers that we're watching on the circuit in this session, it's not the complete field. There will be other drivers in the other 3 qualifying sessions who will all be out there doing lap times as well. And once qualifying is completed, we will amalgamate the times across the 4 sessions, and that will give us our grid positions for the opening race of the weekend.
And getting back to the qualifying fuel, it's sort of reminiscent of the mid-2000s in Formula One, where some teams and drivers would leave the pit lane with a lot of fuel on board and drive around laps and laps, burning that fuel load down before putting in their actual lap. That was, of course, when they had to start the race with the amount of fuel that they left pit lane in qualifying with, and was to try and make sure they started the race with plenty of fuel. Not quite the same concern here, but in a similar way, some of these drivers might be just doing some laps here, slowly building up the pace, burning through the fuel until it's about where they want it. Then they can come back in the pit lane, put on a new set of tyres without taking fuel. And there's also the possibility to only take front tyres in that situation. You'd then leave pit lane in a lighter car with warm rear tyres and a brand new set of front tyres.
So on screen at the moment, we are watching Lee Stibbs, who's scored down in 19th position at the moment. Dylan Burst continues to be the pace setter in this session, not by much though. 0.05 of a second between him and Jack Boyd. Dylan Burst competes in the Track Attack Excel Cup Series up in Queensland. Good to see that he's made the transition across to iRacing. He does have some experience in sim racing as well, driving for the Eclipse Sim Sports team in the Porsche iRacing Cup.
There we go. It's also looking very close, third, fourth, and fifth there. So certainly every little strategy you could employ to pick up a little bit of slipstream down some of the longest straights here, or be it burn that fuel off and then put on a new set of tyres, certainly looks like it could move you up the order a little bit. And of course, we're not seeing the full order, as you've mentioned earlier. You know, you might think that improving half a tenth won't get you anywhere ahead of anyone in this session, but there's other sessions going on. You might be in a battle you don't know about. Every tenth could matter.
Let's have a talk about the racetrack as well, Dave. We haven't really touched on the Brands Hatch layout yet, but I love this corner here. Turn number 1, first corner on the circuit, Paddock Hill Bend, as it's officially known. Just the way that the road drops so dramatically as you turn in. It's actually blind on the approach, and then it's a very, very steep downhill drop, and then you head back up the hill into the Druids Hairpin, which is one of the main overtaking opportunities on the circuit. It's a racetrack steeped in history, like so many British racetracks are. And I think you'd have to say that one of the characteristics of the Brands Hatch layout is the elevation change. The fact that there's so much undulations, there's so much ups and downs, and so many camber changes on the various corners as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Almost every racing series of note that's visited the UK has been here. Take a look at those official corner names and some of the more statistics about it there. And yeah, I mean, Brands Hatch, certainly a circuit that a lot of people know about, hosting Formula One at points and featured in quite a few other simulators as well. It's definitely a staple of, so even going back to the PlayStation days, of different games that had it.
Indeed, even though I've never been to the Brands Hatch circuit in real life, it's one that I'm very familiar with, because I reckon that even from about the mid-2000s, it featured in just about every racing computer game that I played. But main overtaking opportunities, as I mentioned, the Druids Hairpin is one. Also the final corner there, Clark Curve, that presents an overtaking opportunity as well. Some of the circuits around the back part of the track are quite high speed and therefore probably a bit more difficult to overtake. But in these front-wheel drive TCR cars, one of the main challenges that the drivers are going to have is managing the mid-corner understeer, particularly when you get on the power at the apex of the corner. These TCR cars do tend to want to push you out wide, so that'll be the main thing the driver's going to have to deal with. You just have to be a little bit more patient on the throttle than what you think to make sure that you don't run out of road on the exit of the corner.
Definitely rewards just slowly getting into that throttle. Picking up a little bit in the mid-corner certainly seems to help this car turn, but you know, once you pick up some wheel spin, you definitely know about it because the car stops turning. Someone's taking a very creative line there, and it's no good for Ben Smith here, where he's probably lost his momentum on this lap. He had to jump out of the throttle a little bit potentially there to avoid someone who'd maybe been a bit too aggressive warming up the rear tyres.
One of the other things as well with these TCR cars is Ben Smith again gets balked up by a competitor heading up into the right-hander at Hawthorne Bend. Gear ratios are high. Oh, as Ben Smith actually goes right off the racetrack at the next right-hand corner. That's Westfield Bend. Drops all four wheels off the racetrack, manages to get back on. Again, being front-wheel drive, if you have a moment in one of these TCR cars, the best way to get out of it is to keep your foot on the accelerator and let the front end pull you out of trouble. But just to complete the point, the gear ratios are actually a bit lower than what you expect them to be. So first and second gear, you basically only use off the line. And a circuit like this one, it'll be third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And a lot of the corners, you'll actually find that you're in a higher gear than what you expect, because these turbocharged engines do produce plenty of torque from low revs. So maybe not as many gear changes required as what you might normally expect.
Yeah, we're looking on board with Chelsea Angelo here at exactly the wrong angle to be able to see what the number is in the dash there. We can definitely see when the shift indication comes on. Fixed ratios in this car, no matter where and how you drive it, it's the same gear set for everyone, the same final drive for everyone. You can see from this fantastic angle that our director Jay has pulled up, a lot of fourth gear corners in this kind of car. We may be going to see second in the hairpin here. Nope, that's definitely third for Chelsea Angelo there. So indeed, a lot of third, fourth, fifth and sixth in this car.
So Druid's hairpin, that's the slowest corner on the racetrack, and you can see there that Chelsea was in third gear all the way around. Good to see Chelsea Angelo competing tonight. She has as well been racing in the ARG Esports Cup. And Chelsea Angelo, one of the more prominent female competitors in the Australian motorsport scene. We've seen her in the TCR Australia Series the last couple of seasons. Also the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge, but she has done a bit of Excel racing as well, and hence she does qualify to race in the Circuit Excel eSeries.
Yeah, so a little bit of seat time with this Audi RS3 LMS certainly ought to help her a bit of experience, because it does take a little bit of warming up to the way that this car drives. So there's definitely some experts in this sort of TCR style racing.
Just fantastic, though, that we've been able to take one of the most popular real-life racing series in Australia, as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast. The Excel series came along in 2013 when a group of enthusiasts in New South Wales decided that we needed a new budget entry-level category. And since it was introduced back then, it has exploded in popularity. And I mean, seriously, the number of Excel race cars that we have here in Australia, it's well into the hundreds. At some of the state-level events, particularly in Victoria, they've actually had to split it up into two separate series based on driver age, simply because there are too many cars to fit onto the grid for a single race. And not only that, we've seen a number of Excels competing in endurance races such as the 24 Hours of Le Mans events for cars up to $1,000 as well. So the Hyundai Excels, because of their popularity, because of their affordability, because of the fact that there's so many out there as road cars, so there's an abundance of spare parts, it has made it a very, very popular racing category. And obviously, with racetracks closed at the moment, the Regal Life Excel's not able to be on the circuit, but good that the community has banded together and put together this A-Series, which is one of a few different A-Series that have cropped up specifically targeted at Excel competitors.
So taking a look again, Ben Smith, whose previous laps were a little inhibited. This 135 is not going to quite trouble that top time of a 132. And I'm starting to wonder about maybe the track temperature starting to get away from some of the drivers, making it more difficult for them to improve their times. It's early-ish afternoon in sim time right now. And as it gets a tiny bit later, the sun might be just getting the track a tiny bit hotter as well. So that definitely is something that has an effect here on iRacing, the track temperature changing how much grip is available to you, and beyond a certain point, it can be just a bit too hot. You'd be going faster on a cooler track.
Track temperature will be one of the factors. The other factor as well is that not a lot of the drivers have actually necessarily come into the pits. It does seem to be that there are quite a few drivers who have stayed out there for a fair bit of the session. So it could be that the tyres are just past their peak level of performance. I'm actually, just to kind of make a mockery of that point, I'm having a look at the timing board, and most of the drivers have actually done a pit stop at some stage during the session to take on fresh tyres. But it could be that either the tyres that they're on at the moment are past their peak level of performance, or in fact they're actually cycling the tyres up to have one final crack late on in this session. At the moment, it's Dylan Burst who's still the fastest driver in the session. Jack Boyd second, Caleb Hyde's third, and then it's Aaron Oliver, back to Matthew Brunt, Darren Whittington, Textar McCoy, Ryan Casher, Tommy Saunter-Chun, and Benjamin Smith rounding out your top 10 at this stage.
Yeah, I've also had a look at that timing screen and seen that just about everyone's been down pit lane once, but a couple have been to pits a second time, trying to make 3 runs out of this qualifying session. Includes Dylan Burst, and so it's worked for him. Also, a couple drivers just been through include Ben Smith. We saw Teal as well going through the pit lane, and we speak about that you got to get those tires into the optimum temperature window. Can take a lap or 2 laps, maybe even 3 sometimes, depending on the situation. So drivers who are just leaving the pit lane now are really going to cut it fine to be able to improve at the end of this session.
The one that I would have expected to have been a little bit further up the order would have been Ben Smith. So he's currently down in 10th position within this session.
Just seen Dylan Burst come across that line, improve his time by just about 2/10.
Indeed, so it gets down to a 32.5 just to finish the point on Ben Smith. So at the moment, he's only 10th fastest in this session. He's second in the championship, let's not forget, behind Ethan Grigault. 10th in this session is going to translate to lower than that on the grid once we combine the times from the other sessions. So Ben Smith at the moment has a bit of work to do.
Yep, certainly he does. Got to take a look. He's just started his first flying lap since he put a new set of tyres on, so maybe not this lap, maybe the one after he'll try and get his way up that order. First lap on the set of tyres is going to be a struggle, but the one after, they might be just where he needs them.
So we're getting to the business end of the session now, where there's only going to be a couple of laps left for drivers to punch out a lap time. So right now it comes down to what sort of job has everybody done of managing their tyre strategies, making sure that they've got a good set of tyres on their cars for this final run. And also, as you mentioned earlier on, David, how much fuel have they been able to burn off? How light have they been able to get their cars? And also, and we see an example of it again there, how badly or otherwise do they get impeded by traffic on the racetrack?
And of course, our different qualifying sessions aren't by any championship order or anything. Bit of a lucky lottery on that one. So we have got the full spread in the different sessions. We've got, as you said, our second place in the championship driver in this session, and then also anyone else who fancied being a part of this particular group. So you're not guaranteed to be running with people of similar speed or driving style to yourself.
So we watch Ben Smith at the moment, scored down in 10th position at the moment, needs a good lap time to be able to move up. At the moment, his best time, a 1 minute 33.7.
Look at this, he is getting a bit of a tow from his teammate Dylan Burst, who seems pretty confident in having pole position wrapped up. Bit of team strategy at play here.
There is, so they managed to get across the line, so they will get, I reckon, one more crack at it. So Ben Smith, this is going to need to be a very, very stout lap. Oh, as Dylan Burst runs off the road at turn number 3. And so any tow that Ben Smith may have been getting, obviously that's out the window, but what Ben Smith does now have is a bit of clear track at his disposal to finish off this lap. So all about being smooth and precise in these cars, as we mentioned, being patient on the throttle coming out of the slower corners to make sure that you don't give away momentum and lap time with understeering wide. And we'll stay with Ben Smith for the rest of this lap, because this is critical for one of our championship contenders. He needs to bank a good time. He needs to vault up the order. Bit of a slower car just stepping off the racing line and in fact spinning out there in the background as Ben Smith comes through into the left-hander at Sterling's. So just one corner left to negotiate now. Clark Curve, which is quite a long right-hand corner that leads you back onto the main straight. Let's see what the lap time's like for Ben Smith. 1 minute 33.7, the lap time that he holds at the moment as his best lap. Is he able to better it? No. 1 minute 33.9, so he was a couple of tenths slower that time through. And
The flag man with the checkered flag
Yep.
there waving it. So everyone who's on a lap is going to be able to complete it, but everyone crossing the line now, obviously, seeing the checkered flag, their session is over.
Indeed. I'm just having a look at Ben Smith because I reckon he might have got across the line there with just a fraction of a second, or it might have been 1 or 2 seconds left on the clock. So he might actually get another lap here. Timing is showing that he's still on a lap, so he managed to get across for one more crack at it here, Ben Smith. So he gets another chance. However, it is going to be a traffic-affected lap, and he's caught up to that slower car at the worst possible time at the top of the hill there at Hawthorne Bend, and that has trashed that lap, and in fact he spun off the circuit altogether. So Ben Smith ends up down in 10th position in this session as we see Jordan Sinney coming across the line to complete his lap. The driver who has been a competitor in the Victorian Excel Series for the last few seasons, but has recently moved into the Victorian Formula Ford Championship. And that is all she wrote for qualifying.
Yep, so what you see on your screen right now isn't going to be the official qualifying order for race 1 coming up shortly. It's just the drivers from this particular group, and we'll see where and how everyone else did a bit later once those are collated all together. But obviously, in this particular session, great job by Dylan Burst there on pole. I say that leading this session by a bit more over than 3/10 there. Aaron Oliver in 3rd and Caleb Hydes in 4th. Very, very close, and you can see the rest of them.
So, obviously, the series administrators for this series will have ensured that the track conditions for all 4 of the qualifying groups were exactly the same. So, obviously, there's not going to be any advantage or disadvantage depending on what session you're in. It's a level playing field for everybody. And we have seen this in other categories, haven't we, in real life, particularly at the Monaco circuit, where often they have separate qualifying groups for the FIA Formula 2 and also the Formula Renault Championships, just to make sure that the drivers are able to get clear track. So it'll be interesting to see how things end up once we amalgamate the lap times between the sessions. But what we might do now here on SimSpeed TV is go for a quick break. When we come back, we will be previewing all of the action for you ahead of race number 1, round 2 of the Circuit Excel eSeries. You are watching SimSpeed TV.
We got big time problems with that motor, buddy. Hey, just between you and me, the idea is to avoid the other cars. Congratulations! You just set the sport back 30 years with that move. That move will put you in the Hall of Shame. You keep doing stuff like that and we're gonna lose our sponsor. Looks like that's it for us today. Now I know why you got canned by your old team. It's over. We can't fix that damage. Looks like your car is toast. You'll need a tow back to pit lane. Press and hold your reset button and we'll come and get you.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything else on the both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson.
guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?
You've tuned in to SimSpeed TV for round 2 of the 2020 Circuit Excel Series. Great to have your company right around the world, wherever you're tuning in. Lockie Manson with you, along with David Haynes, getting ourselves set for race 1, which is coming your way very, very shortly. We've had qualifying. We've combined the times across the 4 groups. Of the news, once we amalgamated those times, is that it was Ethan Grigol for the Evolution Racing team who scored back-to-back pole positions. Not by much, though. The final margin at the top of the timesheets was only about a tenth of a second. So shaping up to be another very competitive race. David, we've got a massive field of cars set for this one. More than 50 cars going to line up on the grid for this second round of the Circuit Excel Series.
Yeah, I'm hearing that the exact number is 53, which is certainly a very, very healthy grid, and in the spirit of Excel competition, seeing as we know that they are known for their healthy grids and the ease that people can go racing. Well, I guess it's the same here on iRacing, and yeah, we're looking forward to this race. Bit of a warm-up session right now before the drivers form up on the grid for race 1 of 2 this evening.
So just to explain the race format for tonight as well, there will be 2 races. This is a sprint round. A bit later on in the season, we're going to have some endurance events as well, which will include longer races with pit stops. No pit stops in either of the 30-minute races tonight. For race number 1, they will line up how they qualified. For race 2, it'll be a top 10 reverse grid based on the finishing positions from race 1. In terms of championship points, each of the 2 races worth 150 points for the race winner. And at the moment, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Ethan Grigol, who was the round winner in round number 1, he comes into the round with the championship lead by virtue of finishing first and second in last weekend's 2 races. And we're going to have a pretty good battle between a couple of the teams that we've also seen duking it out in the Turbo Touring Car Series, the Evolution Racing team, Panther Race Fuel sponsored cars, and the Eclipse Racing team with their Pitbox.io sponsored machines. They have locked out the first 2 rows of the grid.
Yeah, so some of the sim racing experience coming to the fore in that regard. I think throughout all of the field, we're going to see some interesting racing between some people who might regularly race door-to-door against each other, and some people who, up until this point, might not have had the opportunity.
So, again, because of the fact that this is based on the Excel Circuit Racing Series, a lot of the drivers who are competing do have experience racing door-to-door in real life. Not all of them necessarily are current competitors in the Excel Racing Series, and some of them have moved on to other categories, but certainly a lot of the drivers are very familiar with one another in the real-life scenarios. So, having a look at Jordan Caruso at the moment in one of the Evolution Racing cars, one of the front runners in the Victorian Excel Series, then stepped up to drive the John Goulet-owned Audi A4 in the Australian Sports Sedan Series, and finished up second in the championship in that car. So Jordan Caruso back on board a familiar mark in the form of an Audi for the Excel Egg Series.
Certainly, if he's a fan of the 4 rings, he'll be delighted that this is the model of TCR car that iRacing has laser scanned. Only TCR car that we have at the moment, but certainly all of the TCR cars we know in real world competition are very, very equal to each other, very, very closely matched. So probably not missing out on much, only having one model to choose.
As always, very, very professionally presented paint schemes on all of the cars. As we have a look at Brock Feeney just testing the limits of adhesion while waving left and right to try and warm up his tyres. Brock Feeney is a name that will be familiar to a lot of people through his success in the Kumo V8 Touring Car Series last year, where he was the series champion, but he has had some experience racing in XLs as well.
And you said no pit stops for our races. You mean no scheduled pit stops. We did see a great demonstration there of the iRacing damage model featured on these cars there from Brock Feeney, where one of the tyres got loose and then he was in the barrier and another of the tyres got loose. So if there's some damage, some of our drivers might need that pit lane, but they'll be hoping that they don't.
So having a look at the Burson Auto Parts car. Now, it says on the screen graphics that it's Jason Bargwanna, but it's actually his son Ben driving that car tonight. They do share an iRacing account. And Ben Bargwanna, a driver again who cut his teeth in Excel racing in Victoria and New South Wales, and has since stepped up to race in state and national level Formula Ford competition.
And some of the liveries are very, very interesting for our events here. We've got some of the more familiar sim racing team liveries, and then we've also got some very well put together XL replicas on some of these Audis. Now, not quite an identical body shape, so not all of the liveries have perfectly translated. There's a lot of people out there running their regular XL sponsors on this Audi.
And there are also some of the drivers, particularly the ones who compete in the real-life TCR series, who have chosen to replicate those liveries as well. So, again, one of the things that never ceases to impress me when it comes to these iRacing events is the effort that the drivers and the teams put into the presentation of their cars with the livery design and making sure that they turn out with really, really beautifully presented cars. But that completes the warm-up session. Let's have a look at the starting grid. It's Ethan Griggolt and Dylan Burse on the front row. Back to Jordan Caruso and Jack Boyd on the second row. Aaron Oliver in fifth position ahead of Caleb Hines. And then it's Jaden Wanzek, Lee Harrison, Matthew Brunt, and Matthew Woodward completing the top 10.
Let's take a look at the next 10, which is Darren Whittington, Brock Feeney, Tex Star McCoy, Tommy Saunter-Chun, Ryan Casher, Mitchell McGarry, Adrian Sarkis, Ben Bargwanna, like we mentioned, Lachlan Minif, and Ben Smith. 20 seconds till green.
So I'll very, very quickly run through the rest of the grid. Sam Christus is back there, along with Daniel Hettershade, Chelsea Angelo, Liam Hides, back to Michael Clementi, Gordon Smith, Andrew Hobby, Scott Barlow. Over the next page we go. In fact, we'll be able to run through the grid positions properly because we are actually going to have a rolling start behind the safety car for this race. Our producer, Jay Kennedy, in the background was rushing to get through the grid positions because he thought that it was going to be a standing start, but in fact, we get to complete a full lap behind the safety car in preparation for the rolling start. So, James Zeitz completes the top 30 there ahead of Dalton Ellery. David, you can take us through the next 10 grid positions.
Yeah, so in 31st, that says Ryan Bell alongside Reese Rowland in 32nd, Xander Antonov in 33rd, Lee Stibbs 34th, 35th, Joshua Richards, Chris Donnelly then in 36th, Cassandra Hora in 37th, Dean O'Neill 38th, Darren Curry 39th, Lachlan Ward in 40th.
Getting down towards the tail end runners, Nicholas Scaife out of 41st position back to Scott Stevenson, James Simpson in 43rd, Jordan Sinney in 44th position, Shane Nowich in position 45, Martin Sparks in 46th, Jason Teal in 47th, then Ethan Fitzgerald, Harry Topkins and Matthew Hull completing the top 50 cars on the grid.
And just three more on the back of the field there. Matthew Horn, Richard Bailey, and Stephen Miller. That is our 53 car grid. A bumper grid it is, and you can see some of our cars at the pointy end. They're trying to make sure their tyres are nice and warm.
And just like in qualifying, but even more critical in the race, it's going to be all about working those rear tyres hard and trying to get as much temperature as you can into the back tyres on this warm-up lap, because one of the things that we've seen in real-life TCR racing, and it very much applies to the virtual world as well, cold rear tyres make the cars very, very skatey and unstable, particularly through fast corners in the early laps of races. So the drivers are going to have to be a little bit circumspect until those tyres are completely up to temperature. Here we go, forming up in side-by-side formation. The lights are out on the safety car, getting ourselves set for a rolling start for the first of 30 minutes around the Brands Hatch circuit. It's two teams well renowned for their sim racing success in the form of Evolution and Eclipse Racing off the front row. The green flag flies, and straight away it's the Evolution Racing teammates who prevail at the front of the field. Ethan Grigolt taking the lead ahead of Jordan Caruso.
Yep, great jump from Caruso in that couple cars around, and that is right on the outside of turn one. Clean mostly at the front of the field. Tough start for Dylan Burst though.
Indeed, so he's fallen back from that front row starting position back into third position. For whatever reason, the acceleration didn't quite go his way there off the rolling start, and he just didn't have the momentum there on the outside of the track, and he got jumped from position 3 by Jordan Caruso. So he falls back into third position. Just having a look at some of the cars that were involved in some drama early in the race. We saw Matthew Woodward off the road. Let's hope that we can get through this opening lap without too much panel contact and too much damage. Front end of the field, it all seems to be fairly tidy so far, but it's in the mid-pack where you get the congestion. That's the main area of concern.
Yeah, especially if you're deeper in that pack and you try to make a good jump and someone in the midfield doesn't quite get it. Rally driving from Matthew front there. He's going to rejoin a bit of clear track, keep it going, but once you get one tyre on the grass in these cars, you're just going to keep on going.
And the instinct of most racing drivers, if you start to have a sideways moment, is to get off the accelerator pedal. But if you do that in a TCR car, generally that will just flick you into a spin. The best thing that you can do is actually keep your foot on the accelerator and let the front end pull you out of trouble, as we've got one car heading into the pits
Ben
already.
Smith, man, who's second in the points, I believe.
So unscheduled pit stop for Benjamin Smith, who had a less than ideal qualifying session. And that's going to cause him to tumble down the order in a big moment there. Lachlan beneath the Legera sim racing entry goes spearing off at the Druids hairpin. He had it all locked up there, trying to make the move down the inside of multiple cars. And he has been able to rejoin the racetrack, thankfully, Lachlan beneath. But we'll have a look at our modem simulation replay as he went for a big dive down the inside that actually started a little bit further back at turn number 1. Did he get a touch from behind? Yeah, he did. So Lachlan beneath got some assistance there, and it was actually pretty good car control in the end to get back on, only making light contact with that tyre wall. And we've got Chris Donnelly off the road at the first corner as well.
We can see the replay of exactly how that one happened. Going side to side here, he's just got those outside tyres onto the grass on turn in. Like you said, very skatey at the rear sometimes, and that sent him into the barrier, and actually noticed it punctured the front left tyre for him as well.
Again, one of the things that we've seen recently with this new damage model that we have with iRacing with the TCR cars is that if you make contact with other cars or with barriers around the circuit, it does create quite severe damage, which can include suspension and steering damage as well. So drivers need to be very careful not to have heavy impacts with solid objects.
Or a crumpling on the boot like we saw on one of those particular shots there. So yeah, the panels are definitely, you can put a crinkle or a bend into them if you have a little bit of front to back contact, which certainly happens when the racing is this close.
So Lachlan beneath's fallen back to 19th position as a result of that off-track excursion at turn number 2. Druids hairpin on the previous lap. Just to reiterate as well, race 2 is the top 10 reverse grid race. So I think what we can expect to see here, David, is a battle royale for 10th position. Everybody will be trying to come 10th, particularly once we get into the closing laps to try and pick up pole for the reverse grid race.
Certainly you'd ordinarily want to be in 10th instead of 11th, but more so if you know that getting up that one particular spot would then put you on pole for the next race. And I think grid position kind of matters in these sprint races with such a big field and anything being able to take place and transpire in the first couple laps.
Because there's no compulsory pit stops, if you want to make positions, you have to do it on the track as well. And again, because these cars are so evenly matched, not that easy to overtake, but not impossible, as Mitchell McGarry is demonstrating for us at the moment. That is a change of position as he sweeps through down on the inside of the Yamaha-sponsored car. Those two cars are going to continue a side-by-side drag race up the straight as well. In fact, they'll go 3 wide down into turn number 1. Daniel Heddersheed and Andrew Hobby both involved in that contest as well.
And then a bit more too wide here, little bit of a rub there, and that certainly helps the LJ Hooker car around. They almost got meshed together there. Gary's not going to be pleased with that, I don't think, though.
No, so just coming out of turn number 2, nose-to-tail contact there. It was Andrew Hobby who got into the back of Mitchell McGarry and caused him to go rotating off the circuit. The big question now is what damage will that have done, and problems for Michael Clementi as well, who's gone off at turn 3. Here's the replay from on board Andrew Hobby's car. So just on the exit of turn number 2, McGarry had a slow exit, and you can see that Andrew Hobby obviously got checked up, and then as he came back on, he got into the back of Michael Clementi's car. So Andrew Hobby making contact with 2 different drivers in the space of 2 corners. And this is another replay of contact between a couple of teammates we're hearing. So Dylan Burse and Jack Boyd were both battling for position. Let's have a look at what's happened here. Oh, they've both come together, and it's Jack Boyd who comes off second best. Monster Energy car goes spinning off the circuit, and that's not good news for Jack Boyd at all, because he was running in a pretty competitive position inside the top 6 in the championship coming into this round.
Yeah, with big grid like this and points not being paid all the way down, consistency is definitely key. So you don't want that in race 1. And of course, when you're talking about a sort of progressive grid format like we are used to for TCR, then a bad race 1 just continues to compound your bad event.
So points are awarded down to 30th position in this series as we ride on board with Tommy Saunter-Chun, currently scored in 9th position, just ahead of Matthew Brunt and just behind Darren Whittington. Darren Whittington just running a little bit wide there. He was under pressure from Saunter-Chun, who's going to have a big attack at the next corner, not quite close enough to make the move stick through there. Goes to show that it's pretty easy if you just run slightly wide of the ideal racing line to lose momentum, and that's what can open up overtaking opportunities for the cars behind. Riding on board at the moment with Gordon Smith, who's down in 18th position. Behind Liam Hines at the moment there. Fastest lap of the race so far, 1 minute 32.8, set by our race leader Ethan Grigols, who has an advantage of 1.2 seconds over his teammate Jordan Caruso. And Darren Whittington's just managed to gain a spot. That was at turn number 4. Looks like there was somebody who had a bit of a slow run out of that corner, because there are a couple of drivers who made up positions. Darren Whittington and Tommy Saunter-Chun both gained a spot there, so that was Matthew Brunt, in fact, I believe, who had a bit of a slow run out of that corner.
I think I'm back with you here, Lockie. So obviously, when we're all in the line like this, you get out of that line, you're going to drop back a couple spots as well. Grass is everywhere to the side of this racetrack here. It's old-fashioned in that way. Not a lot of paved runoff, or any really to speak of around here.
The late great Peter Brock made the observation that great racetracks have consequences, and Brands Hatch certainly falls into that category. The other thing that makes Brands Hatch a great racetrack is the fact that the corner, or the corners are described by names rather than numbers. That's always an indication of a great racetrack as well. So down the inside, Tommy Saunter-Chun, does he get the move done? Got Druid's hairpin. He and Darren Whittington are going to go side by side on the exit, but Whittington will have the preferred inside line for the next left-hander at turn 3. We've got a car that's spun off the road there as well, just on the exit of turn number 3, but Saunter Chun switches back to the inside. Gets back down the inside of Darren Whittington at turn 4, so he'd been attacking for a couple of laps there, Tommy Saunter Chun. Took him a little while to set up the move, but he's finally made it work.
Yep, so there is a couple big movers in this field. They do include Saunter Chun, who's up 6 places from the qualifying grid. Brock Feeney's also up 5. So inside your top 10, those are your 2 biggest movers. And you see it sort of writ large in this kind of where it's just having a little bit of patience, but then seizing the opportunity and for the most part, keeping it clean.
So at the moment, the driver in 10th position is Matthew Brunt. So if the race were to finish right now, he would pick up reverse grid pole. He's not going to be content with that though, and he now starts to put the pressure on Darren Whittington. Just behind him, we've got Ben Bargwana in 11th position. The interesting thing there is that Ben Bargwana finished up in 10th position in race 1 at Laguna Seca last week. So if he was to make up one more spot, get himself inside the top 10, it would be the second week in a row that Ben Bargwana would find himself starting on pole position for the reverse grid race.
A great place to start for all the reasons that we outlined before. It's close here, 4th, 5th and 6th though.
So I've got Aaron Oliver versus Jaden Wanzek and young Caleb Hines. Aaron Oliver, the Penrite car, currently running in 4th position. And Aaron Oliver's another driver who's very well positioned in the championship standings, 3rd in the points coming into this round, behind Ethan Grigault and Benjamin Smith. Speaking of Benjamin Smith, he's all the way down in 27th position after making that unscheduled pit stop earlier on, so he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, he would have gotten the car fixed up stop, and then in his way back up through the field, he's obviously picked up a little bit more damage, especially on the front left. You can see that headlight probably doesn't work if he needed to turn it on, which he won't. Also, the bonnet is messed up a little bit. Same too for part of the bumper and the guard over the front left tyre.
So looking at drivers that have made up lots of positions, Scott Stevenson and Jordan Sinney have both moved up 20 positions from where they qualified. Dean O'Neill and Lachlan Ward have both had strong progress as well. 18th and 19 spots respectively they've made up. They're currently running just inside the top 20 as Aaron Oliver continues to get pressured from behind by Jaden Wanzek, and all 3 drivers running very wide right out over the exit ripple strip at turn number 3. It's a little bit deceptive there because there is some AstroTurf over the back edge of that curb, so you can actually run a bit wide there without losing too much in the way of grip.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those garden treatments where there's a lattice concrete with some grass growing up through it, like my uncle's garden. And so in that way, the tyres find a bit more grip through some of the concrete sections there, but mostly you just see the grass. But it's, yeah, again, a type of sort of AstroTurf like they like to put out there. But I think it's grass growing concrete lattice.
Probably a no-go zone in wet weather, but in the dry it's all okay. Here is the battle for positions 14 and 15. Chelsea Angelo in the Astron Tech sponsored machine, holding out Lachlan Maneef aboard the Legera Sim Racing Gamer Gear Direct entry. Maneef, of course, on the recovery mission after having that earlier off-track excursion at turn 2, the Druids hairpin.
I really get the sense we're getting into the meat of this race because I've had my eyes on the timing screen in places, and some of these they've come together through across the line, and everyone in the pack together has set personal best times. I saw that in our battle in 8th place and some of the other packs. It's less scruffy than it was earlier on. People are really settling in their rhythm, and lots of drivers right now are starting to go personal best on the timing screen.
So obviously all of the tyres now well and truly up to temperature. Here we go. This battle is continuing. It's been on pretty much all race long between Darren Whittington, Matthew Brunt, and Tommy Saunter Chun. So that was Brunt making door-to-door contact with Saunter Chun.
Saunter Chun then holds on to 8th place. Brunt wasn't able to gain anything from that, what I can see. In fact, he drops back a little bit, and Ben Bargwanna in 11th is now going to keep him under pressure. So you mentioned it earlier, maybe that's what it takes to come true for Ben Bargwanna to get to 10th and start pole for race 2. Oh, Euro beat action there from Brunt. He might lose out on this spot. That's 10th. That's going to be pole for race 2.
He was on full sprint car mode there, heading into the left-hander, and that invites Ben Bargwanna to have a big look up the outside, heading into the final corner. And Bargwanna is going to be very, very well placed here to execute the switchback manoeuvre, which he will do with a beautiful manoeuvre coming out of the last corner. Just got a better exit, was able to position himself up the inside. So Ben Bargwanna moves up into the top 10.
Textbook over-under, wasn't it? So that does get him into just to cover it off in the hairpin.
I reckon Matthew Brunt's taken that loss of position personally, because he gave Bargwanna a bit of a tap on the exit of that corner just to let him know that he was still there. We turn our attention back to this battle between Aaron Oliver and Jaden Wanzek. Wanzek right on the attack, closing in onto the back of Aaron Oliver as they head through the rhythmic rise and fall of this Brands Hatch circuit into a couple of quite high-speed right-handers at Hawthorne Bend and Westfield Bend. You're turning up the hill into Hawthorne Bend before you turn back down the hill into Westfield.
And looking up the road from them, that's a little bit of traffic and like 3 cars. And, you know, some of those lap 1 bus stops, there's a little bit of lapped traffic about as well, proving difficult.
And more problems here. This time it's Darren Whittington who makes a bit of a mistake. That will allow Saunter Chun to get past, and we've had contact. So these are the cars that were battling over position. Jaden Wazek sporting big damage to the front of his Audi. There's another car that's been involved in that one as well. And
that
we believe that it was a
mentioned.
back marker. So just to illustrate the point that you were making, David, about lapped traffic potentially getting tangled up with our race leaders, I think it might have been the car of Matthew Horn. And that is seriously unlucky for Jaden Wanzek getting caught up in that incident.
Yeah, wheels off the wagon for both of those drivers. Oh, that is... yeah, not a lot of reaction time and not a whole lot you can do there. Wanzek still revving it, trying to move that car out of the way. He wasn't going to go very far after that incident, though, unfortunately. A lot of damage, and tyres are almost coming fully off the chassis.
And just to compound the problem for him, the grid positions for race 2, the top 10 might be reversed, but for the rest of the positions, you start where you finish this race. So if you have a problem and you finish down the order, that leaves you with a lot of hard work to do for race 2.
That's why you'd think a bit of caution in race 1 would be the way to go. Not sure we've seen that from all of our competitors, but they are out there having a ripping race right now.
So Ben Bargwanna still sitting in 10th position. So at the moment, he's in the box seats, pick up reverse grid pole. Next car behind him, Techstar McCoy, sitting in 11th position. And the difference between finishing 10th and 11th in this race is the difference between starting on pole or starting in 11th position for race 2. So it will be a pretty hotly contested position. Not sure that Techstar McCoy quite has the pace to catch up to the next pack of cars in front, though.
We missed it in all of the action, but Brunt did get back past Ben Bargwanna as they were trying to dodge some of those stricken cars. The battle further down the order here, Lee Harrison, Ethan Fitzgerald and Mike Clemente as well, who has some work to do.
This is a really good battle, and it's a bit like real-life Excel racing. Pretty much wherever you are in the field, it can be guaranteed that you are going to have other cars to have a battle against. So It's one of the things that we really do love about Excel racing in the real world, and it's something that's being replicated in the virtual world as well.
Let's see if I've got this right. Fitzgerald here might have started at a 48th spot right up the back of the grid, but some of the attrition we've seen and maybe the race pace and consistency is just a little bit better for Ethan Fitzgerald here. Moved up to 25th and trying to keep Clemente behind in that, I think that's a WTCR inspired list.
Just goes to show, doesn't it? Sometimes the best approach is not to be too aggressive or ambitious early in the race, but just to creep up on it, keep yourself out of trouble, keep punching out the consistent lap times, make sure you don't get caught up in any incidents on the track, and you can very easily make up a lot of positions by stealth.
Matthew Woodward, we saw the big incident for him much earlier in this race, finding the tyre barrier here on the circuit and outside of the final corner. Now he's trying to work his way back up through the field and going to struggle if you get any of your drive wheels out on the grass. Huge incident.
Oh, it's just coming out of the last corner, and goodness me, that's big contact. Matthew Woodward, for the second time in this race, involved in very heavy contact with the wall. We saw that he was in a crash on lap 1 in turn 1, and unfortunately the Ned Whiskey car's been involved in a second incident, this time at the last corner.
He's trying to get his nose underneath Fitzgerald on the exit. Doesn't quite work. The two come together and both of them lose their bumper on the pit straight. Ben Smith trying to recover the field. Trying to find a clean line.
Wow, how lucky was Ben Smith not to get caught up in that incident?
He'll tell you maybe it was more skill than luck, but I think you need both when the two cars are so heavily damaged, so unpredictable on a straight that's also a bit of a curve.
We turn our attention back to this battle between Tommy Saunter-Chun, Matthew Brunt, Darren Whittington and Ben Bargwana. A couple of lapped cars in the equation in that one as well. Good job by that back marker, in fact, just to sidestep and make sure that he didn't impede those drivers. And just behind them we've got Techstar McCoy and Daniel Hettershade battling over positions 11 and 12. Hettershade with a really good run through turn 1. Can he get down the inside of Techstar McCoy at turn 2? No. And I've just seen back behind those two as well, Chelsea Angelo and Lachlan Maneef continuing their battle. Angelo was able to get back down the inside of Maneef into turn 2, and she will hold on to that spot at turn 3 as well. What can Maneef do in response? You can see that he's able to carry really, really good mid-corner speed through those two high-speed right-handers that Hawthorn and Westfield bend around the back of the circuit. Can he get down the inside of Angelo? He's going to have a big think about it. And yet again, those two cars will be side by side, and Angelo just manages to stay in front, heading through Stirling's. And a high-quality battle between these two. And Maneef will have to go back to the drawing board to try and line up a passing manoeuvre somewhere else. As we mentioned. Here we go. Maneef, good run through turn number 1. Can he get down the inside of Angelo? Goes for the move at turn 2. Those two cars will run door to door out of that corner, and Maneef moves up into 13th position. I reckon these two might just keep swapping positions backwards and forwards for the rest of the race. It's been a really good exchange between the pair of them.
Right, I'm back with you once again, but yeah, certainly, I mean, the TCR car lends itself to these kind of racing. Anytime it's a car that's easy to drive to 95% of its speed, but difficult to drive to that 100%, get those last final tenths. It's always going to be close stuff.
Gotta love the taxing livery on Techstar McCoy's TCR car. Certainly guarantee that he will get you to your destination a lot more quickly than a lot of taxi drivers. Having to hold out Daniel Hettershade at the moment, though, and the more that these two battle, the more they'll slow each other down, and that will allow the pair of Manif and Angelo to close in on them as well. Hettershade looking for the over and under. He's made contact with the rear of Techstar McCoy on the exit of the final corner. McCoy loses a huge amount of momentum out of that one, and as a result, he will fall in behind Lachlan Manif and possibly Chelsea Angelo, although Angelo will have to go round the outside into turn 1. Techstar McCoy just slowing it up at the apex. Angelo looking for the switchback to get up the inside. Unfortunately for Chelsea, there was a laps car there in a bit of an awkward position on the inside, which prevented her from being able to make that overtaking manoeuvre on Techstar McCoy.
Would have been a good maneuver any other day were it not for the position of that traffic. We look here, Gordon Smith in 15th there. Battle on our hands here as well.
Sort of a case of 2x2 battles at the moment, isn't it? They've all divided up into pairs of cars, so we've got we had the battle between Hettershade and McCoy, we had the battle between Manif and Angelo, we had the battle between Gordon Smith and I think it was Dean O'Neill was the next car behind him. They're all still battling pretty ferociously inside the top 10. Brock Feeney's done a good job, works his way up into 5th position. Behind him, Caleb Hydes and Matthew Brunt. Matthew Brunt still scrapping with Tommy Saunter-Chud and Darren Whittington. Right on board, in fact, with Matthew Brunt at the moment, who's closing up onto the back of Caleb Hydes as they head into turn 1.
Ooh, someone's going to go skating in the background as we take a look at this move here, and there was just a car's width to the inside, and position gained there. Looks like
might have been one of the back markers there, I think you'll find there, David, that took a trip there through the gravel trap. I thought that might have been Tommy Saunter-Chud, but he's clearly stayed on the racetrack, so there's one of the other cars there that took quite a high-speed excursion there through the gravel trap, as we see Techstar McCoy still having to work hard to hold out Chelsea Angelo in the contest for positions 13 and 14. Chelsea Angelo getting a very strong exit from Surtees corner, turn number 4. Should be right in the toe of Techstar McCoy as they head over the undulations up towards Hawthorn.
take a look at a replay of that one potentially. Well, something else actually. Oh, car reversing back onto the track, and Mike Clemente was running in. No, he's running a little bit further down the order than that graphic says, but again, not able to find a way around that stricken car that was rolling backwards down the hill onto circuit.
Cassandra Hoare. Yeah, I mean, that'll be a bit frustrating for Michael Clemente because he really didn't have any chance whatsoever to avoid that incident. As I've mentioned earlier on, the thing at turn number 1 was that as you crest the rise on the approach to that corner and you turn right to head down the hill, it's a blind corner. So once you're committed through there, there's not really a lot of chance that you've got to take evasive action, and Michael Clemente would not have expected a car to have been parked directly in his path.
No, certainly not. So we take a look. We're looking for Matthew Brunt, and he's trying to size up Brock Feeney here. Feeney very easy to find in that red car, so running 5th. And Brunt in 6th is definitely looking for a way path. Slightly defensive line from Feeney, not going to be enough.
Matthew Brunt's car's come alive in the last couple of laps. He's shown really, really good pace, and he's been able to make up quite a few spots. It wasn't all that long ago that he was down in 10th position, but he's clawed back some good ground and really putting the pressure on Brock Feeney at the moment. In fact, the last time around, Matthew Brunt was 0.6 of a second quicker than Brock Feeney. So Matthew Brunt, 1 minute 34.3. He's actually the third fastest driver on the racetrack at the moment. So he's done a good job of managing the tyres. And that is going to work to his advantage in the closing stages of this race.
He's definitely doing a good job of backing it up before the corners and getting a strong exit. Final lap, white flag will be out for these guys, so the patience is running out for Brunt.
And Brock Feeney, this is going to test all his skills to defend. Look at him squeezing Matthew Brunt across in the braking zone at turn 2. Matthew Brunt almost got the overlap happening, but Brock Feeney was well aware and drove it straight to the inside of the circuit to make sure that Brunt wasn't able to squeeze through on the inside there, heading up into Druid's hairpin.
Won't be over for these two on the final lap, but also, man, we've hardly said the name much of Ethan Grigault leading this race still. Techstar McCoy, we were watching some of his action earlier. It's come undone a little bit.
So he was battling against Chelsea Angelo, wasn't he? But obviously that error is going to take him out of that battle. But Ethan Grigault, well, he's having to negotiate a bit of lap traffic at the moment, the Evolution Racing driver, but he comes out of the last corner, and it has been a superb performance once again from Ethan Grigault, and he's going to pick up his second race victory from 3 races in the Circuit Excel eSeries, and by a pretty comfortable margin in the end as well, with Jordan Caruso coming through in second position, 7.1 seconds of drift of his teammate in an Evolution Racing Team 1-2 finish. And it's Dylan Burst who finishes up in third position ahead of Aaron Oliver. And Brock Feeney is going to hold out Matthew Brunt in that battle for positions 5 and 6. We'll look back to the tail end of the field. And Daniel Heddershade and Caleb Hyde's battling it out in the line in the battle for 10th position. That's close between those two. In the end, it gets resolved in favour of Caleb Hyde, so he will pick up pole position for the reverse grid race.
Yeah, you'd fight like hell for that 10th place, knowing that it means pole position for race 2. You'd fight hard for that position regardless. Gonna take a look at the replay here for Techstar McCoy. That's Angelo behind him, bit of traffic in front. So Angelo look for the move. Does indeed. Tex might have come across a little bit. Just goes to show that the slightest bit of contact on the rear of these cars, and that tail does get very, very skaty.
Well, that answers that question then, doesn't it? So they were battling for position and they were making contact. Oh, yeah, well, Chelsea Angelo's just gone into the rear of Techstar McCoy there. So anyway, we'll leave that one for the officials to discuss as we get set for race 2, which will be coming up very shortly. But confirmation of your final results. It's Ethan Grigault, the race winner, 7.1 seconds the margin back to Jordan Caruso. Dylan Burst in third position, ahead of Aaron Oliver, Brock Feeney in 5th, Matthew Brunt 6th, Tommy Swartachorn, Darren Whittington, Ben Bargwana, Caleb Hyde's completing the top 10.
Looking further down the field then, Daniel Heddershade just going to miss out on that reverse grid in 11th, Lachlan Menif in 12th. Chelsea Angelo then did get 13th place, maybe a bit cheeky with the move on Techstar McCoy, but it's not really for us to look too far into that one. Gordon Smith in 15th, Sam Christensen in 16th, got James Zeitz 17th, Liam Hydes in 18th, Lee Harrison 19th, 20th, Ryan Casher.
Outside the top 20, Dean O'Neill in 21st position. Pretty tough race 1 for Ben Smith, second in the championship coming into the round. Will fall backwards as a result of finishing down in 22nd position. Back to Scott Barlow, Lachlan Ward, Scott Stevenson, Lee Stibbs, back to Mitchell McGarry, Xander Anthony, Nathan Fitzgerald, and Jaden Wanzek in 30th position. Unfortunately, Jaden Wanzek getting caught up in a collision while he was inside the top 10.
Look over the page once more, and Matthew Woodward in the Ned Whiskey car, only getting 31st after what was not a particularly clean race. We'll be looking to improve on that in race 2. Then Ryan Bell, Matthew Hull, Adrian Sarkis got Cini in 35th there. Says Darren Curry 36th, Andrew Hobby 37th, James Simpson 38th, Shane Novicky in 39th and 40th for Chris Donnelly.
And we keep rolling through the results. We believe that we've got our race winner standing by very shortly as well. Cassandra Hoare, 41st, back to Nicholas Scaife. Martin Sparks, Race Rollins, Josh Richards, Jason Teal, back to Richard Bailey. Michael Clementi in 48th, back to Matthew Horn. And Harry Tompkins in position 50.
A 20-lap race, so we're functionally looking at retirements here at the end. Dalton Ellery, 11 laps down, completing less than half race distance. Same two retirements after 5 laps for Stephen Miller and Jack Boyd. They'll be looking to improve in race 2.
So, as mentioned, we have our race winner from Evolution Racing standing by after what was a fairly comfortable victory in race number 1. Ethan Grigault, congratulations, mate. Was it as easy for you from the driver's seat as what it looked for us from the outside?
To be honest, the first bit of the race was probably about 3 laps of it, and then from there on, it just became battle of the lap traffic. So obviously, a lot of the guys here are quite new to iRacing and haven't got their head around spatial awareness yet. So it's a bit of a battle out there to even stay in front and keep consistent laps in when you got to keep passing cars. But all in all, it's good fun.
Talk us through this Brands Hatch circuit. What's the main ingredient for fast lap times around this track?
Just rolling speed. So just keep the rolling speed up through all the corners because it's such a high speed track. There's really only a couple of stops, and even then you're not going all that slow. So yeah, just keeping the rolling speed up and trying not to scrub the front tires off on the.
We've seen you doing a lot of racing in lots of different types of cars in the iRacing series, including the supercars, where you have proven yourself to be quite the expert steerer. How does the TCR machine rate?
Yeah, look, it's completely different to anything I've learnt before. I've predominantly been a rear-wheel drive race driver, so getting used to this front-wheel drive certainly is different. And me planning on getting into the XLs this year, I thought it was a perfect place to try and get my head around the way to drive these cars, because obviously it's completely different to a V8 supercar. You're not driving it on the rear tires, you're trying to save the fronts, and obviously when you get on the throttle, the thing just wants to play out like a tractor. So there's a certain art form to getting these to go quick.
In real life, I think you already have done a bit of stuff in an Excel, haven't you? I think in the Enduro at Winton.
Yeah, I drove in the Enduro with Benny Smith in the Chemo car, which was a good bit of fun. Got my eye into it, had some awesome racing there, and I've done a couple of test days in my own car. And unfortunately, with this whole coronavirus thing, I haven't quite gotten a chance to send it out for a race meeting yet. But hopefully, everything packs up and we get to go racing.
Good stuff. Probably the final thing that I want to get your thought on is tyre management. So it's always a big talking point about TCR cars, whether in the real world or in the virtual world. But how did you go, firstly, with making sure that you got the rear tyres up to temperature early in the race, and secondly, with managing the tyres throughout the race?
Yeah, look, that was probably the longest single stint I've done in a TCR. I've only ever done probably 20-minute races with a pit stop in them. So it's definitely hard to get the rear tyres up in the first phase, just obviously weaving the tyres in the in the out lap to try and get temperature in them, but it's still not enough for the first 2 laps there. But yeah, definitely towards the end you start noticing the front tyres are going off a bit, so you just try and trail off the throttle a bit to bring them back in the temperature window, and then it's all good.
Good stuff. Congratulations. Your prize for the race winners that you get to start P10 for race 2.
Brilliant. You can't pass here, so this should be interesting.
Looking forward to it. Congratulations. There he is, our race 1 winner from the Evolution Racing team, Ethan Grigault. And what we might do right now is we might take a quick break here on SimSpeed TV. We've got race number 2 coming your way very, very shortly. Great to have your company wherever you are tuning in.
to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Lee to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
I'm going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying, there's contact though.
Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness! Half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Welcome back, everybody. You are watching the Circuit Excel eSeries on SimSpeed Television. My name's Lachlan Mansell. Joining me in the commentary box tonight, we've got David Haynes. We've just completed race number 1 for round 2. We are at Brands Hatch in the UK, getting set for the second of our half-hour races this evening. And just to spice things up a little bit, we invert the top 10. So our race 1 winner, Ethan Grigolt, he will get relegated to grid position number 10 for this one. And as we heard from him in the interview at the completion of race 1, not the easiest circuit to overtake. So this is going to be a pretty interesting race, David, with some of those faster cars having to work their way through from the tail end of the top 10.
Yeah, and it does fit his description. A lot of these corners, very, very momentum based, particularly, Surtees, and then you come up into the back half of the Grand Prix layout, and all of those are very fast corners. Certainly seems like Druids is your biggest stop on the racetrack, and even that's not an easy overtaking zone because it's so immediately after turn 1.
So, as Ethan mentioned to us, there's not a lot of big stops at this circuit apart from perhaps the Druids hairpin. Pretty much everywhere else around the track, it's all about keeping the rolling speed up because the rest of the corners are all pretty fast. So they're the key factors and ingredients in terms of what it takes to go fast around this circuit. At the moment, we're just in the final 75 seconds or so of our race 2 warm-up session. And for all of the grid positions outside the top 10, the drivers will start in the order in which they finished. So positions 11 down will be based on the finishing order from race 1.
Yeah, and that's going to be, if anything, more jumbles than race 1, because there were certainly some quick drivers who came into strife in race 1 who might be starting from very near the back, but might have that top 20 pace. And we've got some fans at the circuit here. I think that's Dale Jr. and who is it from iRacing? Steve Myers, is it, you say? Was the name? Yeah, so I think, well, at least one big name fan at the circuit checking the cars as they leave pit lane.
There is a problem there, though. They're not 1.5 metres apart, so they're not adhering to the social.
The other problem is how two-dimensional they appear. There's not a lot of depth to them, but it's nice to have.
Definitely great to have some of the biggest names of world motorsport trackside. Actually, Dale Jr., I have to say, has been getting quite heavily involved in the sim racing. We've seen him competing in the NASCAR eSeries races, but we've seen him have a go in an IndyCar as well. And that has generated a terrific fan following for some of those American iRacing series, which is really, really good.
Rolling start once again for race 2 gives us plenty of time to go through that gridlocky. We've got a whole pace lap to do.
So Caleb Hyde's on pole position for this one ahead of Ben Bargwanna, and then it's Darren Whittington, Tommy Saunter-Chun. We saw that those guys had a terrific battle in at the previous race. Matthew Brunt out of position number 5 ahead of Brock Feeney. Back then to Aaron Oliver, Dylan Burst, Jordan Caruso. Now race 1 winner Ethan Grigont completing the top 10.
Over the page, the drivers who didn't get into that invert at the front of the grid. Daniel Hetterscheid then in 11th, Lachlan Mynafe in 12th, Chelsea Angelo going to start out of 13th with Texstar McCoy alongside. Hopefully those two don't come together like they did in race 1. We've got Gordon Smith in 15th, Sam Christensen in 16th, James Zeitz in 17th, Liam Hides in 18th, Lee Harrison 19th, and Ryan Cash are going to start out of 20th.
Dean O'Neill in 21st position. Ben Smith, watch for him to come through from 22nd on the grid. Scott Barlow 23rd. Lachlan Ward, the New South Wales driver, in position 24. Back to Scott Stevenson, Lee Stibbs, Mitchell McGarry in 27th position. Xander Antoneef in 28th. Ethan Fitzgerald in 29th. And Jaden Wanzek, who was involved in a contretemps with a lapped car in the previous race, they will complete the top 30.
On to 31st, Matthew Woodward in the Ned Whiskey car, hoping to do better than that, move forwards in this race. Ryan Bell alongside in row 16. Got Matthew Hull and Adrian Sarkis. Cini in 35th. You did mention who was actually driving that car, and it's escaped my memory, so I'll let you correct me.
Jordan Cini is driving.
Jordan Cini, that is 35th. Couple of drivers sharing their cars. Darren Curry in 36th, Andrew Hobby 37th, James Simpson 38th, Shane Novicki 39th, and Chris Donnelly in 40th.
We continue on. Cassandra Hoare 41st, back to Nicholas Scaife in 42nd. Martin Sparks in 43rd position ahead of Race Rowlands. Joshua Richards back to Richard Bailey, Michael Clementi, Matthew Horn, Dalton Ellery, and Stephen Miller in 50th spot. We've
lost 2 drivers since race 1, so it's just going to be Jack Boyd at the back there in 51st. A couple of those cars maybe not being able to be turned around in time for race 2.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. A little bit too much damage, couldn't quite get them fixed up in time for race number 2. But looking forward to this one, we've got the 14-year-old Queenslander Caleb Hyde's on pole position. We've got Jason Bargwanna, the 2000 Bathurst winner's son, Ben Bargwanna, starting out of grid position number 2. And we've seen that Ben Bargwanna is getting quicker and quicker the more time that he spends in simulator racing. Out of the last corner they come. Green flag about to fly, and it's a good jump from our pole sitter Caleb Hydes. Ben Bargwanna slots into position number 2. And we've got the 2 team cars running side by side of Whittington and also Aaron Oliver there. Contact at turn number 2, and that's going to send our race leader very, very wide indeed. In fact, he'll go right off the circuit there, Caleb Hydes, and drop a bunch of spots. And more contacts. It's Texstar McCoy off the road at turn number 3. Another car going right out into the grass there to avoid contact with Texstar McCoy. But it's Matthew Brunt who's been able to avoid that pandemonium at turn 2 and has opened a comprehensive lead over the rest of the field. Brock Feeney up to 2nd, Ben Bargwanna in 3rd position.
We also had a bit of an incident on the pace lap, so quite a few cars didn't make it to the start of this race as well. So bruising first lap, but it was bruising before lap 1 as well.
And some aggression already starting as Aaron Oliver goes for the big move on Ben Bargwanna. Bargwanna loses momentum, Oh, and he has a big tail end slide, the cold rear tyres that we've been talking about all night. Almost catching out Ben Bargwanna. He manages to catch it there on the exit, and he manages to save that position. And just having a look to see, that was Ethan Grigault who managed to get up the inside there of Ben Bargwanna. One of the other Evolution Racing cars of Jordan Caruso back a bit further in the pack, battling it out with Lachlan Maneef. But check out this lead for Matthew Brunt. He has pulled well clear of the field. Already over a second as they come round to complete lap number 1. And off the road, a couple of cars at the final corner, including Aaron Oliver and Darren Whittington, both out through the gravel trap.
Someone's going to have to plough that again after this race. There's a lot of marks out there, plenty of witness marks, but they did manage to get back onto the circuit without finding any of the barriers. They're a little further from the circuit. Riding aboard Chelsea Angelo, and a great view we get backwards there. She's moved up a couple of spots in the start of this race. There's a lot of drivers behind there who might want to move up as well.
So Tommy Saunter-Chun was one of the drivers who was involved in that incident on the opening lap as well, so he's fallen back to 9th position. I got confused. That's because Saunter-Chun's car has a different livery on it now compared to what it had in race number 1. So I misidentified his car, and I think it was one of the drivers, I'm sure, that was involved in a bit of a tangle at turn number 2 on the opening lap. Right now he's in behind Lachlan Maneef, who has moved up into 8th position after the first lap of the race.
A quick turnaround at the graphics shop between race 1 and race 2. Might have gotten plenty of airtime in race 1 and signed a sponsor deal between then and now. And this invert of the top 10 is certainly turning it on, because we've got those guys who were in the top 4 trying to get their way back through. They're going to struggle for a way through here, Jordan Caruso, because Burst and Hetterscheid are side by side in front of him.
And Ben Bargwanna, oh, we've got more contact at this time at turn number 1. That's Jordan Caruso and Daniel Hetterscheid coming together, and it's Hetterscheid who gets spun off the circuit and rejoins right in front of the next pack of cars. Thankfully, they all managed to avoid collecting the rear of Hetterscheid's car. We're right on board with Jordan Caruso. He's in behind Lachlan Maneef and pulls to the inside of Maneef heading into turn 4. Light panel contacts between those two cars, and Caruso gets the job done.
It's also a good battle in front of them, Burst and Bargwanna, and I think Bargwanna might have just lost out, but none of this is decided this early in the race as they're side by side coming up the hill. Bargwanna on the outside is going to drop back into 5th there, as the man who was fastest in the qualifying session we had our eyes on at the start of this evening has moved himself up into 4th, trying to pursue 1st, 2nd and 3rd, who have bolted away from this train being led by Burst at the moment.
So Dylan Burst at least now has a bit of clear track to work with. I do feel a bit sorry for Caleb Hydes, the driver who started this race from pole position, because his chances of leading from the front were pretty much gone as soon as he copped that hit at turn number 2 on the opening lap. Out in front, Matthew Brunt continues to lead. However, the margin has come down. Brock Feeney is catching him. It's now just over a second separating 1st and 2nd. Nathan Grigault, our race 1 winner, already up into 3rd position, and we've only completed 5 minutes of the race so far. There's Matthew Woodward, who was caught in a couple of incidents in race number 1. Looks like further dramas for him in race 2, because he's made an unscheduled visit to pit lane.
They've been busy replacing a lot of panels on that car tonight, unfortunately. And James Simpson, who's a lap down, getting out of the way, taking the I believe there's a rallycross layout here, but that's not it. But he's trying to stay out of the way, and Ben Bargwanna is going to get muscled from all sides. Really, really hurts his run. Jordan Caruso comes on through. I think Lachlan Maneef is door-to-door with him as well. He's on the outside, though.
Yeah, Lachlan Maneef just not quite in the position to be able to get the move on the outside of Ben Bargwanna. Both those drivers have raced against one another in Formula Ford competitions, so again, pretty good friends off the track and understand each other's driving styles pretty well. Ben Bargwanna managing to hold on to that position at the moment. So the order at the moment: Matthew Brunt, Brock Feeney, Ethan Grigault, back to Dylan Burst. Then it's this battle. Oh, we've got one of the back markers spun and collected. And Caleb Hydes has been involved in another incident. And further dramas as well for Jaden Wanzek heading into Sterling's. You have to feel sorry for Jaden Wanzek because after getting caught up in a collision with the back marker in race number 1, he'd actually done a really good job to make up some spots. He was back up challenging for a place inside the top 10, and it looks like he's been caught up in another incident. And you are kidding me. That is another incident with a back marker. So 2 races in a row for Jaden Wanzek. He's been caught up in tangles with back markers.
He's not going to be happy with that, and that's a lot of damage. Going to put him a long way back. Up the front, though, Ethan Grigault trying to move up through the field has caught up to Brock Feeney in second. Feeney is also catching Brunt for the lead last time around, so it's really compressing in this battle for the lead of the race, and it's on behind them as well.
Jordan Caruso making the move around the outside of Dylan Burse into what will be 4th position. Fastest lap of the race achieved by Ethan Grigault last time around of 1 minute 32.6, so he was 0.8 of a second quicker than the race leader, Matthew Brunt. And like you said, the margin is coming down as Brock Feeney makes a mistake on the exit of Sterling's corner, runs a bit wide, and even though he was on the inside for the final right-hander, Ethan Grigault was just carrying too much speed and momentum on the outside, so Ethan Grigault moves up into 2nd position.
He said it's difficult to pass around here, but if your opposition is all 4 tyres in the grass, that probably makes it a little bit easier. That one was a pretty easy handball for Ethan Grigault.
This is a pretty willing pack at the moment. We've got Tommy Saunter-Chun ahead of Aaron Oliver, back to Lachlan beneath Chelsea Angelo and Ben Bargwana. So Bargwana's been shuffled back a few spots, and he looks to recapture one of those with a move on the inside of Chelsea Angelo heading into turn 2. But Angelo on the inside for turn 3, but Bargwana will look to do the over and under and have another crack at Angelo on the run into turn 4. Here he goes up the inside. Angelo sees him coming, opens up the steering. Good clean racing. Both those drivers able to make it through that corner side by side.
At the lead, we saw Ethan Grigault go through into 2nd place. Now he's absolutely demolished the gap between him and the lead. And he's just looking at where and how he's going to size up Matthew Brunt. He might need a mistake again, unless he can force a mistake, or maybe find a way to the inside at Druids.
He has had pace to burn tonight, Ethan Grigault. Just the way that he's been able to scythe his way through the field after starting down in 10th position. Race number 1, we didn't really get to see it because he was just cruising out on his own at the front of the field, but the efficiency with which he's been able to work his way up to the pointy end has been very impressive. And here comes the move for the lead down the inside of Matthew Brunt into turn number 1, and that move is done as easily as you like. So Ethan Grigault has taken him less than 10 minutes, less than a third of this race, to get the Evolution Racing Team entry back to P1.
Yeah, we didn't have to watch for very long before we saw that move, did we? He closed that gap up, and then at the very first opportunity, had that momentum, went to the inside, and I think just being offline, Brunt didn't quite know what to do about it, and in that way lost his speed, and Grigault through into the lead.
Here is Lachlan Beneath. We ride on board with him once again in behind Aaron Oliver and Tommy Saunter-Chun. Some of these drivers, like Lachlan Beneath, for example, and Ben Bargwana probably falls into that category, and so too does Chelsea Angelo, didn't qualify all that strongly, but their race pace has been pretty good. When they've got themselves up with the lead pack, they've been able to run there pretty comfortably, as we say that Aaron Oliver has made the move through on Tommy Saunter-Chun, so Aaron Oliver up into 6th position.
Great stuff, lots of battles going on, quite a few battle packs and trains as well, so this is kind of starting to get the racing in race 2 we were really hoping for, but there is unfortunately just a little bit more drama that we're going to get the modem simulation replay on.
Looks like Scott Barlow has been involved in a contretemps. And we've actually got a safety car situation. Oh my goodness me. Scott Barlow did about a 1,060-degree somersault with Pike there, and that has obviously heavy damage to his car, and the officials have decided that with that car in that position, that the safety car is going to have to come out onto the circuit to bunch up the field. Whoa.
Makes you dizzy, but a good thing with one of those tyres breaking free that we saw the track workers are behind a fence there, so they were safe from that flying debris that can come off these cars and then further damage other cars. The debris is certainly a consideration, but I don't think anyone slowed up too drastically for it behind the safety car.
So this will be interesting here because apart from the fact that the field is bunched up and all of the gaps are neutralised, the tyres are going to cool out while they're trundling around at low speed behind the safety car. So what you'll probably see here is the drivers weaving left and right just to try and maintain as much temperature in those slick tyres as they can.
Having a flick up and down my timing screen, trying to work out who this benefits. And certainly I think if you're Ethan Grigault, you didn't want this. If you're trying to build out a lead at the front of the field, you never want a safety car. But there's some who might have, had to take some repairs earlier in the race, got back out there, who are now being brought right back into play. And not sure who all of those we might see is, but Jack Boyd here, who started, of course, well down in the order from the very rear of the field. He's worked his way up into 20th, so that might help him that it's compressed the field in front of him, and he's the biggest mover. Is he? Just one more spot gained than Michael Clementi.
Another driver to watch will be Ben Smith. We know that he's typically fairly quick. He's come up 8 spots into 14th position so far, and a couple of the other drivers that have had incidents, the likes of Caleb Hides and Jaden Wanzek, gets them back into the game as well. If you're a bit further down the order, you might actually think about, and we do see a few cars doing it, coming in, taking a pit stop and putting on some fresh tyres. Obviously, if you're running up the front, you wouldn't do it because you'd lose too much track position. But if you're down the order and you don't have anything to lose, why not bolt on a set of fresh tyres and give yourself the best possible package to make up as many positions as you can in the run to the checkered flag.
There's also some who might look to get some panels pushed back into place or maybe get their alignment fixed if they went a little bit too door-to-door with some of their other competitors. If you are taking a new set of tyres here, you see where 1 to green lights were out on the safety car. Those tyres are going to be cold at the restart, and first couple of laps at least, you might just be a sitting duck to some of the cars around. Say that, we take a look to the Eggman Ethan Grigault, who he's trying to keep those tyres warm. So too Brock Feeney in third, dragging a bit of the brake here and there. These cars are also equipped with a handbrake that is able to be used in iRacing.
And of course, that handbrake very useful during the start phases of these races because you can load up the car against the handbrake, get the engine up to optimum revs, and then release the handbrake when it's go time. So for those of you not familiar with how the safety car works in iRacing, when the safety car is deployed, the field will do 2 laps under safety car conditions, and then the race will restart. So that will leave us with about 14 minutes in what will be the final sprint to the checkered flag. Ethan Grigault for Evolution Racing is your race leader. Matthew Brunt second. Brock Feeney in third position, back to Jordan Caruso. Dylan Burse in fifth. And then it's Aaron Oliver, Tommy Saunter-Chun, Lachlan Manif, Ben Bargwana, Chelsea Angelo completing the top 10.
So safety car is in, and field's being controlled by Ethan Grigault. He puts that power down and away he goes, trying to make sure he can bolt away cleanly. Let's hope it's clean behind him as well. Single file, unlike our double file race start, but all of our field thoroughly compressed together.
You can see that some drivers are already hard on the attack, and Chelsea Angelo gets turned. We've got one of the Eclipse Racing entries off in the gravel trap as well. Chelsea Angelo getting turned around, and it was Ben Smith, the other car that was involved. Matthew Brunt as well, our second place driver at the race start, a bit further up the road at Druids Hairpin. He's been involved in an incident and he's fallen back down the order as well. So this safety car, the field compression, the fact that everybody was tightly bunched together and all wanting to attack and make up positions, we have seen that the drama has unfolded, and it was Gordon Smith who came in very deep into turn number 1, just misjudged his braking, made contact with the rear of Chelsea Angelo, and while she was spinning off into the gravel trap, the carnage back in the pack just got worse and worse.
Yeah, it starts in Paddock Hill Bend here and continues into Druids. We're taking a look at the very front of the field from Brock Feeney's perspective to see what may have happened here, and that's iffy. I think Feeney might have got a tap from behind and it's sort of ricocheted through.
I think you might be right there. I'm not going to throw Brock Feeney under the bus for that one. But either way, it's Matthew Brunt that's ended up getting bundled off the racetrack and dropping a heap of positions. What that
Would you
leaves
say
us
he
with...
bore the brunt of the impact?
You would very much say that he bore the brunt of that.
I bet you that's been said before, and I'm not breaking any new territory with it.
So that leaves the Evolution cars running in first and second position once again. Ethan Grigol's ahead of Jordan Caruso. Dylan Burse in third position now, ahead of Brock Feeney, who's fallen back to fourth. Then it's Oliver Sorter-Chun at beneath, Bargwana, Smith and Hetterscheid.
Taking a look at the back of Feeney's car from this angle, you can definitely see the paint scuffs that have suggested that rear bumper has taken an impact or two. Also some bent rear wheel arch covers as well. So Feeney's done, I'd say, a pretty reasonable job this race, but I think Aaron Oliver behind is looking a bit quick.
Yeah, Aaron Oliver's got good pace. Again, a lot of this final phase of the race is going to come down to how well the drivers have managed their tyres. We heard Nathan Grigol talking in the post-race one interview about how the front tyres start to go away when you get close to the end of the race. And that obviously affects the rate at which you can accelerate out of the corners, and probably starts to give you a bit more understeer through some faster turns as well. So that'll be the thing that the drivers are going to have to be aware of and managing the closing stage of this race. Ben Bargwana on the tail of Lachlan Beneath. Up the road, we've got Brock Feeney defending from Aaron Oliver. Let's see if there's any more positions to be swapped in the closing stages of this race. One thing that's not in any doubt, though, is that Ethan Grigol is in a very commanding position in this race. 1.2 seconds to the good of his teammate Jordan Caruso, the Evolution Racing team, well and truly on target for another 1-2 finish tonight.
Yeah, and then of course all the action is behind that in this battle we're watching here. Great little train encompassing 3rd through to 9th, and Feeney still holding those drivers behind and just driving cleanly, smoothly, and you can be a little bit slower, but as long as you don't make a mistake, it's going to be tough for anyone to get by. That's certainly the impression we got from Ethan Grigol when he spoke with us after race 1.
Tommy Sorter-Chun looking pretty racy here as well. He's not going to be in a bad position at all if Aaron Oliver goes for an over-ambitious manoeuvre on Brock Feeney, and that was Matthew Brunt. So again, a bit of a mistake for him. Obviously, he'll be a bit frustrated after what happens to him up at turn number 2. The trap that you can fall into is that you can then start to overdrive the car to make up for lost time. And yeah, Matthew Brunt there, you can see the rear end of that car just getting loose. And then he's had to apply opposite lock, left, right. Eventually manages to gather it up, but he has lost a spot out of that one.
Not the fastest way through there and not the kindest to the tyres either, so he's driving with a bit of the red mist, I would think. At this one here, at this battle, looking forward from 5th, I think Feeney's actually starting to catch Dylan Burst there in 3rd place as well, and 2 of them are leaving the pack behind as well.
So it could be shaping up for a pretty exciting multi-car battle for the minor placings as we get into the final 9 minutes of this race.
Man who the action seems to follow is Ben Bargwana. He's in the middle of a train here, a bit of a scrap. Got Minif in front that he's trying to hunt down. Tommy sort of chewing right on his back bumper. Feeney also a magnet for action.
Brock Feeney's going to have to be very, very precise with the way that he drives that car for the remainder of this motor race. Lachlan Beneath still under pressure from Ben Barguana, and these two have been battling for most of the night. Like I said, they're very familiar with one another through the time they've spent in Formula 4 together as well. More than anything, they'll be having a lot of fun dueling it out.
It's always a good feeling to put one over your competition, even better if you can tell them about it afterwards. So looking backwards here, a move might be shaping up, or a little bit of a bump draft even. Not going to quite work that way to get a move done for Barguana.
So Barguana seems to have a bit of a pace advantage, but Lachlan Beneath just working to defend that spot at the moment. Got Gordon Smith and Sam Christensen involved in that battle as well. Here's a battle just outside the top 10, including Darren Whittington. And Whittington... Oh, there comes Brunt around the outside as well. And there's another car there that's completely missing its boot and rear wing assembling.
Getting a great look at the internals of the TCR car for Hetterscheid, and as he tried to return serve, it really allowed Brunt into this battle 3 wide. This time Brunt's got the inside and there's not room on the outside for Whittington there, so a bit of 2 for 1 for Brunt. The animosity between Hetterscheid and Whittington kind of costing both of them.
Good move there from Matthew Brunt to slip past both those cars, and Hetterscheid again finds himself battling door to door, swapping some paint with Darren Whittington, and both of those cars are going to make contact. It's Whittington who goes off the road but still manages to fight back on the inside of Hetterscheid, so Whittington holds onto that position for the time being. And these two, with the intensity of this battle, they are slowing each other down, something chronic. Won't be too long before the next group of cars behind, which includes Michael Clementi and also James Zeet, start to get involved in that one as well.
Yeah, a bit of serve and a bit of return serve between those two cost them a position or so, but it looked interesting, that's for sure. And minor miracle that car for Hetterscheid is even close to pace, seeing the panels and the rear wing that it's missing. But maybe it's good for driver cooling. Drums for Clemente, 3 wheels on the wagon, and we're going to look at the modem simulation replay of how that happened. Around the outside, he's trying to battle with Techstar McCoy here. And is that going to be how it happens? Do the 2 tank? Or he helps Tex around and then finds that someone else behind didn't know what was going on.
Michael Clementi, a driver who's sustained a fair bit of damage tonight. Incidents for him in races 1 and 2, so a night to forget for Michael Clementi. Unfortunately, a driver who has stepped up into real-life TCR racing after coming out of the Victorian Excel series.
Our podium battle having to step around a bit of traffic, but it didn't let Aaron Oliver get too much of a look at Brock Feeney. None of these guys losing too much time. But still, this has been almost all race long. We've got Dylan Burst in 3rd, Feeney in 3rd, and Aaron Oliver trying to find a way around that red car of Feeney.
And still hasn't been able to. Brock Feeney's done a really good job of defending and maintaining that position, even though Aaron Oliver has potentially had a bit of extra speed at his disposal. Just behind that battle, they've all swapped around as well, because Tommy Sorter-Chun is now ahead of Ben Barguana. So Barguana was up behind Lachlan Beneath earlier on, but Beneath actually skips clear, and Barguana's fallen back behind Sorter-Chun. And in fact, now that Beneath no longer has to defend, he's catching up to this battle between Feeney and Oliver.
Yeah, he's getting himself right in the picture. You remember we saw Brock Feeney go off circuit trying to defend from Ethan Grigol earlier. Well, I think ever since then, he's looked a picture of consistency.
He has, and with this reverse grid format, that's what you need to do if you want to keep scoring good championship points, is make sure that you can get good finishing positions in both races 1 and 2. Speaking of getting good positions, well, Ethan Grigol and Jordan Caruso, they're on target for 1-2 finishes in both races, even despite the reverse grid format.
And no one was able to clean sweep round 1, so he'd be the first person to do so in Circuit XL's eSeries. Here's the move from Oliver. He's got just enough of a nose down the inside. I would think so. Brock Feeney still didn't agree with that, but in the end he gets moved out of the way and back into 5th place. I think that was kind of inevitable. Oliver had been patient the last 15 minutes. Sooner or later it was going to have to get a little bit more aggressive.
Oh, he had to use a bit of muscle there, didn't he, Oliver, to get down the inside of Feeney, and now Feeney has to use a bit of muscle to get around one of the lapped cars as well, which is now giving some grief to Lachlan Manif as well, who goes out into the grass while trying to go past that back marker. That's Richard Bailey, who's running down in 36th position. That'll be a bit frustrating for Lachlan Manif, because as a result of that, he's lost touch with the 2 cars that he was battling against, Sorta Chun and Bargwana, now having to round up the car of Richard Bailey as well.
Yeah, there's some very wide flares on these TCR cars, and maybe Bailey wasn't fully accustomed to how wide his car was. Certainly was giving a bit of grief to some of these competitors in this battle, but in the end everyone made it through cleanly, even if Feeney did have to muscle through and get the elbows out.
That move that happened on the previous lap where Aaron Oliver got past Brock Feeney, that started because Feeney got a bit wide coming down the hill into turn number 1. And that was what opened up the door for Oliver to go through. Now, here's an incident with Jack Boyd.
It's Woodward who's given him a little bit of help at one of the more committed corners on the circuit, and only the lightest of taps has sent Boyd very, very hard into that barrier. That's a shame. I don't think any intention or malice was meant there, but they've just squeezed down a little bit and helped him around into that barrier.
The Ned Whiskey car's been involved in a few incidents tonight. We saw it off the road and in the wall a couple of times in race 1, and in race 2 also being involved in some of the dramas that we've seen. So Lachlan Manif under some pressure now from Tommy Sorta Chun. On the previous lap, Lachlan Manif was right up behind Brock Feeney, but the lap's traffic did not work to his advantage at all. And it's allowed Sorta Chun to claw his way into the equation.
Certainly trying to size up a move. White flag is out this time around for our lead pack. You see there's 12 seconds left on that play clock, so Ethan Grigolt's just worked his way around in time to make it one more lap. Flagman has the white flag out for all of these competitors.
Yeah, don't think we're going to complete quite as many laps as we did in race number 1 because of the fact that we had a couple of laps under safety car conditions, but this battle between Oliver Feeney Manif and Sorta Chun, it's all bunching up heading into this final lap. Drivers with various states of tyre condition, depending on how well they've been able to manage their tyres over the course of the race.
So the time is now for a move. Move now or forever hold your peace, as it would be. And they've stayed so close in this pack, including Feeney and Oliver, almost all the race. It's been great to watch. It's been pretty clean at the pointy end here between these guys. Hope it remains so on the final lap.
Manif having to defend from Sorta Chun as they come through the back end complex of corners for the final time. Sorta Chun, there's probably a couple of overtaking opportunities left Sterlings will be one, the final corner will be another. But take your hat off to this driver, Ethan Grigol. One race one in style, had to start from 10th on the grid for race 2, but comes through to make it a clean sweep in round 2 of the Circuit Excel eSeries. And once again, it's an Evolution Racing Team 1-2 finish, with Jordan Caruso coming home in 2nd position.
But some drama behind them. It was a drag race between Saunter Chun and Lachlan Manif, and I think Gordon Smith also went for a trip into the gravel on the final lap as well. So I said, last opportunity to make some moves, and some of them may have done so.
So Lachlan Manif managed to hold out Saunter Chun in the run to the line by 15 thousandths of a second. So there was nothing in it between those two there. Here is your race winner, though, Ethan Grigol. What a performance. He will take maximum points out of round 2 of the Circuit Excel eSeries.
Using that handbrake for the reverse burnouts, as you'd want to call them. I think those rear tyres are going to be done with a nice little flat spot on them by the end of this. Is he going to chuck it into reverse gear for the reverse donuts? That's your only opportunity in the front-wheel drive car.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It's probably a bit harder to do burnouts in a front-wheel drive car compared to a rear-wheel drive car, but here is confirmation of your final finishing order. Ethan Grigol by 3.9 seconds ahead of his teammate Jordan Caruso. Dylan Burst in 3rd spot. Back to Aaron Oliver, and then Brock Feeney, Lachlan Manif, Tommy Saunter Chun, Ben Bargwana, Gordon Smith, and Matthew Brunt completing the top 10.
Then from 11th, Sam Christensen, Darren Whittington, Daniel Hettersheed, James Dietz, Geordie Sinney, Liam Hides, Tex Star McCoy, who was easy to spot, but also because he was involved in plenty of action in this one. Same too for Matthew Woodward, who finishes 18th, Lee Harrison in 19th, and then Dalton Ellery in 20th.
Back to Chris Donnelly in 21st, Xander Antoneef in 22nd position, Matthew Hull in 23rd, then Ethan Fitzgerald, Lachlan Ward, Caleb Hines, Chelsea Angelo, Josh Richards, James Simpson, and Nicholas Scaife in 30th spot.
Looking for 31st, it's Andrew Hobby, then Scott Barlow, Shane Novicki in 33rd. 34th is Jack Boyd, who would have liked a little bit more than that, I'm sure. 35th for Richard Bailey, 36th for Lee Stibbs. Micah Clemente, also a magnet for action in both races, finishes 5 laps down in 37th. Reece Rowland 6 laps down, Stephen Miller 7 laps down, and Ryan Casher 9 laps down in what was a 19-lap race.
A shocker of an evening for Ben Smith. No points for him out of race number 2. Adrian Sarkis in 42nd, ahead of Ryan Bell. Back to Mitchell McGarry, Cassandra Hoare, Martin Sparks, Matthew Horn, Jaden Wanzek having a tough run as well. And then it's Dean O'Neill and Scott Stevenson in 50th position.
One more car across the page is Darren Curry, who unfortunately was only able to complete 1 lap in race 2.
So once again, our runaway race winner, Ethan Grigol, is going to be joining us in the commentary box for a chat. And Ethan, obviously, a bit harder work in that one, having to come from 10th on the grid. You mentioned to us before the race that overtaking's difficult at Brands Hatch, but you made it look pretty easy tonight.
Yeah, it was a little bit more difficult off the start, but once the race got going, it wasn't as much lap traffic, which was nice. But yeah, I think just placing the car in the right spot and a bit of incidents in front really made it easy for me.
We saw on the opening lap at turn number 2 that there was a bit of an incident involving a few other drivers. Were you close to getting involved in that one, or were you able to stay in a fairly safe position?
Yeah, look, I sort of saw the car spinning in front, and then Jordan from behind me just yelling, "Stay to the right, slow down." So I did exactly what he said, and we both got through the incident pretty easily, and then we just trucked on.
Obviously, we had a safety car in that one because there were a few other incidents in the middle stages of the race as well. Once the field was bunched up and you had slowed down, was it much of a challenge maintaining tyre temperature at that stage?
I just let the tyres cool off on the first safety car lap, and then on the second one we were doing a bit of weaving to try and get some more heat back into them. But yeah, on the first green flag lap after the safety car, the rear was definitely a handful because there was just no heat in the rear tyres. So but yeah, you just drive it a bit more easy and wait for the temps to come up, and then you push hard.
Well, it was certainly a comprehensive performance for not just yourself, but the Evolution Racing team tonight. You and your teammate Jordan Caruso getting 1-2 finishes in both races. Maximum points for yourself to extend the championship lead. People that you would like to thank for the evening?
I'd just like to have a shout out to Jordan Caruso for having an awesome bounce back after what was last week. He got involved in a few incidents, and for him to come through and make it a ERT 1-2 in both races is awesome. I'd just like to thank our sponsors in Panther Race Fuels and MIR Race.
Good stuff. Congratulations. A fantastic evening, and we look forward to seeing you in round 3 next week.
Cheers, guys.
There we go. Ethan Grigot. What a performance from him tonight. I mean, qualifying on pole position and winning a race when you don't really have any threats from behind is one thing, but then with the reverse grid format where you have to actually fight your way through, you actually have to pass cars and you actually have to demonstrate that you've got some racecraft. That is what really showcases a driver's abilities, and Ethan Grigot certainly did that tonight.
Yeah, he certainly had to work for it. You know, he did come through from 10th into the lead, started to build out a little bit of a lead, and then that was all washed away by the safety car, and then he went and did it all again. So he was up against it and showed that the consistency and the speed he had is deservedly so why he's at the top of the points after 2 rounds and 4 races.
Looks like we've got a couple of other drivers lining up for some interviews as well, including the driver who finished in 3rd place in race number 2, Dylan Burse. Dylan, welcome to the commentary box. Congratulations on a top 3 finish and pretty good pace all night for you.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Talk us through your evening, starting with qualifying. You were at the top of your group in the qualifying session at the beginning of the night.
I was sent it really. Just drove it hard. Didn't do much.
Obviously, the Evolution Racing Team cars were pretty quick, but how much are you enjoying driving the TCR car?
Oh yeah, it's really fun. I normally drive Porsche Cup, but I've been doing a little bit of TCR lately in the ATTC as well. And yeah, it's a pretty fun car to drive.
Give us a sense of what it's like to adapt to the TCR car after racing the rear-wheel drive Porsche Cup car, because I would imagine that there'd be some pretty big differences in driving technique between the front-wheel drive TCR car and the rear-wheel drive mid-engine Porsche.
Yeah, they're way different. Mid-engine Porsche slides around everywhere. This just sticks to the floor. It's a lot easier to drive, I should say.
So, yeah, again, obviously a good result for you tonight. I'm sure there's some people that you would like to thank for your efforts.
Yeah, big thanks to Eclipse Sim Sports, and Pitbots, new sponsor we got.
Yeah, good to see Pitbox stepping up their involvement in the online sim racing world as well as real-life motorsport. And for yourself, Dylan, congratulations on some really solid results tonight.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
There we go, Dylan Burse, 3rd place for him in race number 2 this evening. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That completes round number 2 from the Brands Hatch circuit of the iRacing Circuit Excel eSeries. We'll be back for round number 3 next week, where we'll be changing things up a bit with the format. We'll have a 60-minute endurance race for the Circuit Excel series next week. And you look forward to your company then. Big thank you to my co-commentator, David Haynes. On behalf of the entire team at SimSpeed TV, I'm Lockie Mansell. See you next time. Bye for now.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got really outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top here.
Oh my God!
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?